Call this meeting to order and ask the clerk to please call the roll.
Trustee Ahrens?
Here.
Kammerer?
Here.
Carbonaro?
Here.
Martin?
Here.
Ranke?
Here.
Shipman?
Here.
President Wallace?
Here. First item on the Committee of the Whole agenda is under Planning and Zoning.
All right. Thank you, Mr.
Kammerer.
Thank you, Mr. President. We have three things under Planning and Zoning this evening. The first of which is the Whole Pet Animal Clinic special use. And it's the subject site is at 810 South Route 59, Bartlett Commons Shopping Center. That's at the northwest corner of Route 59 and Stearns Road. And with that being said, I think I'll let Jim give a little more descriptions on that, if you would.
Thank you, Trustee Kammerer. As you stated, the property is at the 810 South Route 59. It's the northerly tenant space in the Bartlett Commons Shopping Center. You may remember it was once proposed for the banquet facility that they were going to put in there. That didn't go forward. Teresa Salee is the petitioner. She is the owner of Whole Pet Animal Clinic, and they would like to move from their current space in Westgate to the Bartlett Commons Shopping Center. They would propose to build out the space. It's 2,778 square feet, 4 exam rooms, a ward room, exotic pet ward, lab, pharmacy, surgical prep room, x-ray, isolation, and dental room, along with offices and a break room, as shown on this floor plan. They are requesting a special use permit that for their whole pet integrative veterinary care facility. There will be 3 full-time veterinaries and 12 staff members. On a typical day, there would be 8 at any particular time. As stated in their petition, they offer traditional and holistic treatment of dogs, cats, and birds, small mammals, and reptiles. And they would like to move to this facility and are requesting a special use permit. The center has 397 parking spaces. Their use would require 30 parking spaces. They'd be open from 8 to 6 on Monday, Tuesday from 8 to 7, Wednesday from 9 to 5, Thursday 8 to 7, and Friday from 9 to 5, and Saturday from 8 to 2. They are here before you prior to going on to the Plan Commission. The petitioner is here if you have any questions.
Is there any questions by any members of the board? I actually have a question of the petitioner, which is, hi.
Dr. Salee is here.
Hi. I noticed in the letter that you sent to the board and the village president and the trustees that you described what you did at your clinic and stuff. And I was just interested when you said we offer chiropractic spinal manipulation. Mm-hmm. Are one of you a licensed chiropractor?
No, we're all licensed veterinarians, but 2 of us have completed a certification course in veterinary chiropractic.
All right, and that encompassed some weekend classes, I'm assuming, right?
Pretty extensive, yes.
Well, I guess from a personal standpoint, as a chiropractor, I might just caution you about, descriptions that might not be accurate and what you're doing. I mean, if you want to call something that you're doing veterinarian manipulation of animals, mm-hmm. I wouldn't see that as being a problem. But when you bring the actual professional entity of chiropractic into your terminology, you likely could have some problems with the Professional Board of Regulations as well. So I just would caution you on that. It's probably not exactly what you do. So I just thought I'd just point that out and just bring it out to you.
Thank you. We actually technically call it veterinary spinal manipulation therapy.
Okay.
And different state boards have different regulations on what you're allowed to call it.
Absolutely.
But most people don't understand what that means, so when we're just trying to, in general, describe what we do, we will sometimes call it chiropractic, but it is technically veterinary spinal manipulation therapy.
There you go. I just think it'd be more accurate in your description to your clients if that's how you were describing it.
Okay.
Okay?
All right.
Thank you.
Are you done?
Yeah.
Okay. I'd like to ask some questions regarding the business itself, if I may. Regarding the elimination area, since that
Yes.
can tend to be an area of concern for people, I'm assuming you received some type of permission from the property owner, the landlords, that that's okay to use
Yes,
that
absolutely.
area for that and everything? And that's, as an animal expert, that's a sufficient area that's large enough there?
It is, and we will also have employees responsible for helping to patrol
We have
the
experts
area.
that tell us how many parking spaces you need. I don't think we have any experts that can tell us how much square footage you need per pooch.
Right. Well,
Or
we won't be.
elimination.
We're not boarding animals.
Right.
So, with us keeping up with it.
And since there's no
Be
boarding,
adequate.
you're not likely expecting any noise issues as far as barking dogs all night long.
Correct.
These
Correct.
types of things. Okay.
You're going to have no barking signs after 9?
Yeah.
And you are, your business is currently in town,
At Westgate Commons
Westgate.
and 770 West Bartlett Road.
so this is not a new competition for current
Correct.
businesses or anything. You're simply relocating to a
Right.
different location. That's all that I have. Thank you.
As long as the Newman knows where to go to, we'll be okay.
There you go. Well, if there's no other questions or thoughts for the petitioner, I would suggest that that we move this on to the Plan Commission and for the public hearing. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks for coming tonight.
All right. Next thing we have on the agenda is the FEMA flood control project, and some of the subject sites are the recently annexed Village of Streamwood parcel, which we'll call the Streamwood parcel, east of Prospect, north of Metro Tracks, and a recently purchased Geller property, the former Geller parcel, east of Prospect, south of Metro Tracks. And that being said, I would let Jim maybe describe things a little bit more in detail.
Thank you, Trustee Kammer. This is the long-awaited FEMA flood control project. As you know, we have Darren Olson from Christopher Burke and Association is our consulting engineer on this project. The village received a grant from FEMA for constructing this. I've put up an overall project plan map that Darren supplied, but it involves working up Taylor Avenue area, the Shoppy Park area, some storm sewer improvements through the middle of our older part of the north end of town. And then really the special use is related to two properties. One is our Streamwood parcel and excavating out the wetland area there for the flood storage capacity that's necessary. And then also what we're referring to as the former Geller property, which is just east of the car wash. Again, a wetland area that we are excavating out for additional flood storage capacity. That is the sum and substance of the special use. As you can see, there's a lot of other maps, and I will get to some of the more detailed maps. This is the Streamwood parcel and what it would look like, and again in the shaded yellow area, showing that's what the area that needs to be excavated out. And then the Geller property, again the yellow area, showing where the wetlands are excavated out. And Darren Olson, our consulting engineer, along with Dave Vogel, who's also with Burke, is here if you have any questions of him. But this, again, is a special use permit that's required under our ordinance from our, affecting wetlands and floodplains, and this is affecting a couple wetlands, and it needs to go to the Plan Commission for a public hearing.
Any questions by members of the board?
Yeah. Jim, talk to me a little bit about this flood control berm on Taylor Avenue.
I'm
Tell me
going
a
to
little more
let
about
Darren
that.
talk to you a little bit about that because
I have visions of some type of a dike with millions of gallons of water behind it pouring onto Wayne Court there or something, and I want to make sure that's not what we're talking about.
Darren will answer that.
Yes, good evening. The flood control berm up on Creston Taylor, the purpose of that is what happens during rain events is we get water coming out of that wetland, overflowing the roadways there and impacting the residences that live immediately south there. What we're going to do is we're going to open up, there's a 36-inch pipe that's taking water out of that wetland and bringing it south into the village. We've created so much flood storage as part of this project, we're essentially opening up that pipe for more capacity. We're going to modify the control structure there and then create a slight berm in the right-of-way that will allow water to be stored in that wetland more effectively rather than pouring across the road into those people's homes.
Okay. But that berm's not, obviously, I mean, you're the engineer, it's not going to be pushing off into the other homes there in Wayne Court or into the school or any of those things?
That's correct. The net result of that overall project there is going to be to actually lower the flood elevations in that wetland. There will be a net benefit to that area.
Okay. That was the only question I had. Thank you.
I might have a question on, I think it would be considered the Geller property?
Geller property?
Geller
Yes.
property. That apparently is the least the least involved with the flood areas, right? What is the word I'm thinking of here? The wetlands, that's what I'm saying. And as so, it's going to be excavated and made into retention or detention area. Is that correct?
Yes, it will be what we call a flood storage area. So it's not detention that is to compensate for development. It's actually, it'll be flood storage so that when the water levels get high enough in the Hearthwood Basin, which is the one that's immediately to the right of the gas pipeline there shown in purple, when water levels in there get high enough, then it will spill over into a drop structure and then begin to fill the green area that we see.
But that only happens when there's excessive amounts of rain, correct? Otherwise, it would be a dry area?
That's correct. Under normal conditions, that area will be dry, and then during these storm events like we had last night, it will fill with water, and then it will be slowly dewatered. There's a large storm sewer. The road that you see running north-south there on the left side of the page is Prospect Avenue. There's a large and deep storm sewer on Prospect that's running south, and the flood storage, the water in the Geller parcel will slowly drain out into that storm sewer system as capacity becomes available.
Well, the primary reason I'm asking is just wondering about the use of it as a dual purpose. I think you make comment here that the bottom will be restored to natural prairie grass that will be mowable during dry periods. The side slopes will be turf grass that will be mowable. Is it absolutely necessary that we have the prairie grass there? In other words, could it be made into a soccer field for the community to be used during the dry seasons?
You know, I think given the side slopes and the nature of the facility that will be filling with water occasionally, and then also again the size of it probably does not make it conducive to a dedicated recreational facility.
And yet we do have some place to think of on Struckman Boulevard where there's a detention area where the kids play in that area, play soccer. Is that correct?
Yeah. They do that.
So this would probably be about the same size, I'm guessing?
It's probably quite a bit deeper too. I mean, the side slopes on this are going to be will be 3 to 1. There'll be some riprap in the bottom. I think under normal circumstances, it probably would not be very conducive to active recreational use. Certainly, there'll be grass growing and maybe some passive use, but not an active recreational use like a soccer field.
Well, the berms just mean you don't have to go chase the ball as far.
It will return automatically to you if you kick it.
I'd have some knees, though.
Well, you just hate to
Be a real tough man.
property sitting dormant if there could be a secondary use to it. Mm-hmm. So
that's something we can look at. We're in near final design, but that's something we can certainly look at.
Right. With the berms, how deep would the water get at any given at the max?
The maximum depth at this parcel, I believe, is approximately 9 feet. Yep. So during the largest storm events, there will be 9 feet of water in the bottom.
And there are some type of drain facilities there that actually remove the water when it starts.
That's correct. Once capacity opens up in that storm sewer on Prospect Avenue, then there is a pipe in the bottom of this basin that will slowly drain the water out.
I would just add, I would commend Trustee Kammerer for his suggestion although considering what we've just been told, this might be an area that we don't want to encourage kids to be using if water could be 9 feet deep with a drain in it.
Yeah.
Just kind of a thought to that.
Of course, you wouldn't be in it when it's flooded, but yeah,
Water polo.
swimming pool, country pond.
Perhaps a water ski facility.
All right, are there any other questions concerning the flood control project?
Just one real quick comment. Are these improvements on the southern part here what will primarily keep the flooding out of those townhomes that happened so severely twice, I think?
That's exactly
I've heard
correct.
from a lot of folks, even though we did make some adjustments, that they were still having some issues. So I'm assuming all of the water in this Geller parcel is going to be held instead of flowing down into those townhomes.
Exactly. Actually, what it's going to do is we're making it flow through that the Hearthwood Farms complex more efficiently, and then it is being essentially stored in this safely in the Geller parcel.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
And this will
Then
go
we're
on to
gonna
Plan
move-
Commission.
Yeah, we're going to move that on then to the Plan Commission
Thank you.
and the public hearing. All right. Next thing on the agenda is the Bartlett Ridge Concept Plan. Petitioner Nate Wysema on behalf of William Ryan Holmes. The subject site is east side of Naperville Road, south of Lake Street, and the World Overcomers Church. And I will turn this over here again to Jim.
Thank you, Trustee Kimmer. This is a concept plan for a project that Mr. Nate Wisma would like to propose. He's looking for your feedback on the concept of changing the what was previously zoned SR5. It is zoned SR5 multifamily and previously approved as the Bravo Sound subdivision back in 2006-75. This is the layout of the 87-unit townhome development that was approved as a preliminary subdivision PUD plan. The developer at that time never submitted a final development plan. What Nate would like to do and what his company would like to do is get some feedback on what they're proposing as Bartlett as a concept plan for Bartlett Ridge, which is 43 single-family homes on the same 13.5 acre subject property. They would propose to subdivide this property for single-family homes. Approximately 6,800 square feet would be the minimum lot size, which closely matches our SR4 suburban residence district. And if they decide to proceed with a full development application, that's what they would request, that rezoning. They are also requesting some, as part of a PUD proposal, they're requesting a 20-foot front yard, 7-foot side yard, 25-foot rear yard, a minimum lot width of 63 feet. And if you look on the right, the SR4 bulk regulations are 25-foot front yard, 5-foot side yard, a 45-foot rear yard, and a 60-foot minimum lot size. They are requesting a modification also of our subdivision ordinance for a reduced right-of-way width instead of 66 feet to 60 feet. They are dedicating along Naperville Road a bike path extension. If they follow through with this, they would also like to create a 2.3 acre open space detention area, which would link in on this side of the development, which link in the Peregrine Park. This has not been reviewed by the Park District, but in the previous development, they had a similar kind of park dedication over in this that side. They would propose buffering along the northern portion, fencing and landscaping, and they would also extend, as the previous development, the Tellerite Court, which links in the Timberline subdivision to the south. They would put that connection in, and then they've done the impervious surface calculations and would be submitting an application that would follow through with our new impervious surface guidelines. Nate is here. He has one more thing. The comprehensive plan identified this site as commercial. If there is a change in this, the land use plan should be amended to reflect the suburban residential densities that they're proposing. And he is here if you have any questions of them and of him. He also did bring some layout or drawings of the proposed types of houses that he would build. If you wanted to see those, we did not have those previously. So,
Questions by the board?
Well, Jim, let me ask you this. Can you explain to us the significance of reducing the width of the right-of-way from 66 to 60 feet?
You're asking for Nate to do that, right? Or
Sure.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Good evening. My name is excuse me. My name is Nate Weinsma. That's a little tough last name, but the right of way, essentially, there's a couple of things driving the planning of this property. One is that we feel very strongly there's a single family use that's viable for the property. We did not feel that way when we were approached with the property under its current townhome use. I believe it was previously 87 townhomes that were approved. The property, as you can see, is very narrow. It's very deep property, but very narrow, just limiting the depth of any lot. When we've been through, I think, 3 staff reviews now, the interdepartmental staff reviews, and had a lot of conversation around right-of-way width. There's standards in the village that are less than 60 feet, but there is certainly, at least from what staff has indicated, a lot of precedent for a 60-foot right-of-way that allows for a depth on the lots on either side to accommodate what are really traditional single-family homes. And again, I brought architectural boards if you'd like to see them. Didn't know what we'd be allowed to kind of show tonight, but I'm happy to share those with you. But to accommodate the impervious or pervious statutes that you now have, really the deeper the lot, the greater the setback and the greater the pervious surface area to the lot. So I think I don't want to overstate it, but I think it was really a kind of a common ground compromise with staff that I think there were certain departments that felt a 58-foot standard was consistent with other parts of the village, but that a 60-foot right-of-way standard would accommodate everything needed from an emergency standpoint, from a public right-of-way improvement standpoint, and allow for the greatest size lot possible.
But my question really goes to, is the road going to be any narrower than any other residential street in the village?
Oh, the pavement? No, back to
pavement.
back would be your standard. Back of curb to back of curb, sidewalk on both sides.
Okay.
Full right-of-way standard.
All right. So
Yeah.
so varying the width of the right-of-way is not going to make the street, as people experience it with their vehicles, narrow or difficult to maneuver through or dangerous or anything
Correct.
like that?
Correct.
Okay.
What is the
Nate?
square footage range and the price range of the homes?
Well, we've got 3 ranch homes that we offer, and then I believe it's 9 two-story models. The ranches range from just over 1,800 to 2,300 square feet. The 2 stories from 2,200 to about 3,400 square feet. Price points here we expect to be in excess of 300 to upwards of 400, low 400s. The site's, like I said, it's a little unique. in that we don't have a lot of land area to get curvilinear with the roads like we typically look at in our planning process. But we do have the ability, as you go east, from west to east into the site, the smallest lots are at the narrowest point, which is the entry parcel leading in to the east. When you get to the cul-de-sac, if you look at the north property line, you can actually see that the parallel north property line notches to the north a bit. So the lots from that point east become larger. They become larger in width and larger in depth. And then obviously the single loaded cul-de-sac to the north accommodates 4 pretty large lots on that cul-de-sac. We plan that specifically to accommodate for fencing and a landscape buffer on those lots backing to the RV dealer and to, well, I guess that's all. Those are all 4 to the RV dealer. As you get further east, you've got Moretti's that we back to, so we want to accommodate as much as we can for a buffer of landscaping and fencing.
I actually have 2 questions, one for you, Nate, but one for Jim. I took a drive over to Tamarack this afternoon over my lunch, and went looking back and through there, and went over to the Peregrine Park. And as I was driving down Tamarack and the townhomes there, their backyards are not that deep to begin with. And now we're talking about reducing the lot size from 45 feet to 25 feet. In my mind, it seems that they could be putting these houses pretty close to the townhouses, and so that would be somewhat of a concern. But but what I'm also curious about is, do we have other areas in town that occurs now, where we have single-family homes abutting townhomes that have a smaller backyard, so to speak?
I don't know if we have any where the backyard is at this width, but there's other areas where you have townhomes and single-family transitioning from one area to the other, but back to back, I can't recall any.
Sandpiper?
I don't know. Sandpiper does have some that go back, but I don't know the depth. I think those homes in Sandpiper, the single family, have a deeper rear yard. I'm going with the 25-foot rear yard.
So that's my first concern. Just
if I could comment on that.
Sure. Did Brian have anything you're commenting?
Brian's saying that we might have something like this near Fairfax up by Ashford Circle.
Okay.
So house to house, what's the distance?
I'd have to look it up. I don't know exactly what those distances are.
Hey, I don't know what the building setbacks are for the Tamarack, for the Timberline townhomes.
We should know that.
I'd be
we should know that before we vote on that.
Well, Tamarack was approved as a townhome, and then we do the site plan approval. So it's a little different in terms of the setback. It's not a set, like a house has a set rear yard, front yard. We do the whole concept and the whole site plan at the same time. So those are roughly going to be about 25 to 30 feet, but their lots are contained within a common area that surrounds the whole development. So I'd have to measure the exact distances, so it's not quite like back to back. But I think some of the residents pointed out that it's a fairly narrow distance that they are back to that property line, and then these proposed homes would be 20, 25 feet in addition.
Well, I'm sure the GIS system could help us out on that one. Well, let me ask you one more thing, one more question. You said that under the comp plan, that land is commercial.
Right.
Is that correct? Okay. So what type of uses under the comp plan and the zoning ordinance could go in there?
Well, you see some of them to the north. I mean, you've got a restaurant, you've got a RV dealer, then you've got a vacant piece of property, and then the church actually is in the commercial area. It's a special use in that district. All of those uses could expand down into this. I believe that the RV dealer actually owned some of this property at one time, so he decided to sell it to the previous developer, and he incorporated it into his townhome development.
In your experience, could this land easily be developed for commercial use?
It's not as conducive now that it's separated from the main road. I think the last time when things were slowed down, and that's why they didn't bring in the final, we felt that the townhomes at that time were and residential uses were good for this piece of property. They didn't. We didn't amend the comp plan at that time because they didn't follow through on the final plat. And I think that's one of the things that we were going to do. Commercial would be difficult with being isolated. I think that townhomes or single-family residential is the best use for this property.
Nate, my second question to you would be, in the planning of this property, as I went over there and looked today, and then I Google mapped the area, where you're proposing a open space detention is quite wooded. It's a forested area, has a lot of full-grown trees. That concerns me a little bit. It seems to me like you would have put the detention area where you have your 4 lots up to the north and put houses in the woods to the south, bigger lots, more trees, a detention area closer to Route 20 that nobody really cares about.
Believe me, I agree. I would much rather have detention up against the commercial uses.
Right.
It's the topography of the site that is the lowest point. Essentially, the plan for that open space area is really the same as what was approved for Bravo Sound. That's the original plat there. That just happens to be the low point where the topography and the natural flow goes. So that's the area that it is wooded. We do have a tree survey of the area. It is most heavily wooded north of that detention area. And one thing that's not shown on this plan, but as was on the previous townhome plan, there was to be, and again we have to deal with the park district, but there was to be a half-acre dedication to the park there, which in essence would preserve whatever trees or foliage are there. That would be our hope, would be just to dedicate that half-acre and add it to that park. That our plan would still be to make that park dedication. But unfortunately, the topography of the site and then the natural drainage just goes to that area.
Yeah, it just seems like you're going to be taking down a lot of trees and kind of clean cutting everything where, obviously, if its topography doesn't allow it, but where you have your big lots to the north, there's nothing there.
Yeah.
And you hate to see trees being taken down and made into an open space if it's not absolutely necessary, or a detention area if it's not absolutely necessary. So,
yeah.
I don't know, does staff have any comments on that? Or?
I think that the engineering dictates that that's where the detention area's got to be. And I believe that if this went through to a preliminary plan and final plan, that the Park District would probably still want to maintain that dedication, and there is also a little bike path or path link from it down to Peregrine Park. We haven't had any formal discussions with them, but when this was a townhome development, that was their desire. And Nate's just following suit with that in terms of some of the engineering layout and the dedication.
You can keep the bike path there.
What's that?
You can keep the bike path there.
Can I say something?
Yes, go ahead. Trustee
Well, the Bravo development certainly had a different concept plan. This plan, although I do like to see single family rather than multiple family, I think we have to keep in mind that this is a concept plan, and that if we approve this tonight, that's all we're approving is a concept, and that we still have the opportunity to come back into the details or a more detailed site plan. Is that not correct?
That is correct. If that developer wants to go that route, that's what you'll see in a formal. It'll have more full flush engineering. It'll have the landscape that Nate talked about, the berms, the buffers, that kind of thing.
Okay. As far as concept goes, I'd like to say I don't find fault with the concept. However, I do have a problem with a 25-foot rear yard. I do have a problem with the number of lots because they are, even though they may fall under our, what is it, SR5, Jim?
These are more like the SR4 with modifications or... Yeah.
SR4. I do have a problem with that, and I think probably it's because we're trying to squeeze 10 pounds of feathers into a 5-pound sack. So I personally would rather see fewer lots. If we're going to cut that backyard to 25 feet, we need fewer lots. We need something to relieve that setback in the backyard setback. So that's it. Thank you.
I'd just like to note, did you choose 25 because it used to be on the Timber Ridge? That's what their backyards were. Looking at this, you can see it was 25.
Yeah.
So
well,
is that why you just kept the 25? Or?
Yeah, well, that's one piece of it, I think. I would like to point out that this was previously 87 townhomes, 43 single-family, and when you talk about the relationship of house to house or residential to residential along our south property line, along their north property line, the number of single-family to the number of townhomes, I think, is a pretty low ratio compared to what had been previously approved and zoned. I would point out that, and we can certainly get into more developed exhibits at preliminary, but our homes range in depth by as much as about 15 feet between models. So in a relationship where a home may be at or near the 25-foot minimum, some element of the home may be at that minimum, but the rest of the home may not. But then the next house next to it could be as far setback as 40 feet. That although we have a rear setback on the plat of 25, the reality of the homes that get built could range from 25 to 40 feet in setback. And that's really what our concentration is at this point, was kind of developing architecture that has a lot of character to the front, a lot of porches that in a shallow setback condition on the front. We've got plans that most of our plans have recessed garages. They don't have the typical front facade of the house with the garage sticking out. It's recessed in. So we were kind of looking closely at that streetscape. But then the rear yard is going to vary a great deal. The front won't, but the rear yards will vary from 25 to 40 feet in and out, depending on the plan. And again, in that relationship of, the way we kind of approached this was we felt like we're approaching it as a downzoning to a detached product. I think when you look at it in the one-dimensional and you just look at the lot lines without really seeing a developed exhibit with footprints, home footprints, and you see what's actually green and what's actually rooftop, it's a little hard to kind of envision that, but that is, our primary concerns with the site are just what you're saying, that rear yard, because not only just from a setback standpoint and a relationship between townhome to single family, but a saleable product that has a backyard that people can utilize. The issue is and the commercial uses to the north and having ample buffer to those. The issue is the site itself is it's kind of one of those properties that it is what it is. It's not a large parcel. It's a very linear parcel. The road layout, while I think that maybe the Bravo Sound was a private road, townhome type road, portions of it, at least the north cul-de-sac portion that they had planned was a private road. It's pretty much the same layout. It's just half the units and an attempt to create a marketable single family that we think is achievable here.
Can I ask a question?
Sure, TL, go right ahead.
Are you putting in 2-car garages?
Yes, all of our plans have a minimum 2-car garage. There's a few of our plans that have what we call a tandem 3-car garage. So it is a 2-car facade, 2-car door, with the outer space being 2 cars deep. So it's a 3-car garage within the envelope of the garage itself.
I just wanted to know if the minimum was 2-car.
Yeah, minimum is 2-car.
Okay.
I'm also assuming that as I looked at the property behind Tamarack, there was a pretty substantial tree line. And I don't know where the property line meets the tree line, but the concept wouldn't be to do anything to the trees, correct? It would be to leave all the tree line intact?
Yeah, to the extent possible, rather than, again, kind of, as we look at sites like this, you tend to say, okay, we'll put up 6-8 foot fence and just, screen it as best you can. We'd prefer to keep that tree line intact, whether it's on our side or the neighbor's side, and accommodate that all the way through.
Yeah, I think there's certain properties, in Walnut Hills, where they have a tree line nobody cuts down trees in that area, right? I don't know what it's called.
We've used that in a number of developments where we preserve the existing tree line or create a tree easement. Try to do that because that provides the natural screening that most people desire.
And we meander the sidewalk around the trees to make sure we keep the front yard trees as well.
Okay. But it could be made into an area back there that was off limits, basically. Is it possible? But the tree line?
It depends on how they design it, and if there's enough room, you can create an easement for tree protection. We've done that on other developments. Again, as Nate pointed out, it's narrow. Yeah. I mean, it's how much of that tree line would be preserved as on a particular lot lends itself to what they're going to build there, how deep it is, how much they need to excavate for utilities, any of that kind of thing. So. Whenever possible, we try to maintain that perimeter tree line.
Yeah, we obviously haven't gotten to that detail, but depending on where those trees physically are on the site, the two things that usually drive that along property lines, tree preservation, is stormwater, either piping it or swales to carry stormwater, or the dry utility companies. In this case, I think we could probably work around the dry utilities. Storm sewer, we'll have to get into the preliminary engineering details of that, but along that south property line, we would likely, again, when we get into the details of it, likely restrict fencing in those rear yards, or at least anywhere there's within an area of tree lines. So if somebody wanted to add a dog or something, they probably have to do an invisible fence. If there's a tree line there that we want to preserve, we would restrict fencing.
I have no further questions. Does anyone else on the board have further questions?
I would just restrict fencing by putting on the backside from Tamarack a 10-foot easement. You can't, subdivision I live in, everyone has 20 to 40 feet. We can't do anything. We own that, but we can't do anything. You can do the same, and that would preserve some of the tree line.
Yeah, to the extent there's a tree line that's on our side of the property, if it's a 10-foot landscape buffer or easement or 15
What I'm saying
feet.
is if they have a 25 or 40-foot backyard, they can't use 10 feet of that. They own it, they can't put
Yeah,
a
yeah.
fence to that up until the 10 feet.
Right.
I just put the air photo up. I don't know if this shows the tree line any better.
Yeah, a little bit. I mean, you can see, at least that's the drip line that you see there.
Right. It's not completely solid, but it's, generally in this. Pretty-
Jim,
Yes?
could you stand 25 feet from the doors to the boardroom?
Could I stand there?
Yes.
Yes.
Your feet are probably about a foot.
Count it out. You have a 12-foot,
You got
12-inch foot.
foot
Here,
to foot.
I've got I think my stride's exactly 2.5.
So from where you're standing to the door to the boardroom, that would be the size of the backyards.
Yeah,
correct?
Yeah. Minimum rear yard would be that.
Yeah.
And again, depending on the model home, up to 40 feet.
No, 15.
Okay. Thank you. I don't, I'm spatially challenged.
And I would have a tendency to agree with Trustee Ahrens when it comes to that 25 feet. I think conceptually speaking, that is pretty narrow. I think, in my opinion, you'd be better off taking the 19 lots that could butt up to another house and restrict or increase the backyard size on those lots. I think you're going to have a better shot at be more palatable for all people involved, and then on the other side, people can do whatever they want. There's nothing behind them.
Yeah, that's part of what we've kind of been going through with staff too on the exercise of laying out. We've laid out every model that we offer on the minimum size lot, along with a driveway and a sidewalk and a patio, and made all those assumptions to kind of prove up that we can meet the pervious surface area regulations. So in doing that, obviously some of our biggest houses can't fit on the smallest lot. They wouldn't be offered on those lots. Yeah. They could be offered on a lot at the east end or in the cul-de-sac. So as we kind of develop through that process, we very regularly restrict certain lots that these 6 plans may be available on those lots because they only go to a depth that would be a 35-foot setback.
Yeah,
and then the other plans...
I would venture to guess even 35 feet is pretty narrow for those folks, but we may be hearing from a few of those, so we'll see. But again, I would also echo Trustee Aaron. I like the plan. I like the single families there.
Thank you.
68 feet's the average from side to side?
The minimum is 63. Typical is 65. And I do not have the maximum. I think the maximum's 83. Yeah.
Anybody else?
Any other questions?
Real quickly for staff, procedurally speaking, since we have some interested people here, how will this proceed, and how can they have their input if they felt
They're going to get it right now.
they're going to get an opportunity?
Yep.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So if everybody's done with questions from Nate and from Jim, we'll open it up to the folks in the audience that would like to give their opinion.
Procedurally, should we go ahead and just go ahead and actually recommend that we'd like to see the petitioner continue on, basically, with a full concept plan, right?
No, I think, you can wait until you've heard input from the residents.
Yeah.
That's fine.
Thank you, Nate.
Yeah, thank you.
So if, at this point, according to our rules for the legal jargon, we'll give you some time here to let us know your thoughts about it. Yep. And if you can please just state your name and your address.
My name again is Julie Strasser, and I live at 1320 Tamarack. And I thank you for accommodating us. I would like to begin, Trustee Kammerer. We at Timberline have a 41-foot perimeter from the end of our building, back of our building, to the property. That's 41 feet. If you walk that, you see that there's some patios. Mine happens to be 12 feet into that yard, and the rest of that grassy area then goes to that tree line. And I think you have said that it is a little tight back there, but it's a townhome. We don't expect to have a full backyard. I don't want to speak on behalf of the other residents, but I think that the consensus is agreement with Trustee Ahrens that the concept is good. We would like to see it remain residential. We don't necessarily want or need to have townhomes. Single family is very pleasant. But we would ask that because of our 41 feet to the perimeter of the property, we would ask that this developer consider doing the same and matching that. That is consistent with the SR4. The setback on that, I think Jim said, was 45. I used to live on Confederation. That setback was 45. It's an SR4 district. And when you get into the homes, it really doesn't seem that far from home, backyard to backyard, when you put a deck, a pool, a shed, whatever. So I'm not speaking for the other residents that are here. I think we can conclude, though, that we agree with Trustee Ahrens. It's a good concept. We would like the residential. We only ask that they consider matching the distance to be at least 40 feet. I think the biggest problem is with that 25-foot setback.
Thank you, Mr.
For the rear yard. Thank you.
Thank you.
Would anybody else like to address this topic at this time?
I'm afraid a lot of what you said has gone over my head. That's falls and things like that. I live in one of those little houses over there.
Can you please state your name and your address for the record?
My mistake. William S. Perry, 1274 Tamarack Drive, the one you just drove by. What concerns me the most is not so much looking out of my backyard and seeing a tree line, which has a nice barbed wire fence from when it was a cattle place before, but what does my daughter's room look like from way up there to the people who live over there with their rooms way up there? Now, I'm sure the gentleman over there in the yellow shirt is a fine, upstanding person, but he's going to have a perfect view over to my side. And this is the kind of thing that makes me nervous. It's not a lot of space. When you talk about the distances, now you can see me perfectly, and I can see you perfectly. There needs to be further back. We've talked about the tree line. We've talked about a small fence. We talked about, I think you mentioned something electrical, but we need something that works for the top of the house as well as for the yard. And that's really all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Is there anybody else that would like to address the board regarding this topic at this time? Seeing none, I'll...
Yeah, question for Jim.
Yep. Another question? Yeah.
Jim, what's the front yard? How far back does that have to sit? What's the minimum?
Yes, sir.
This is a 20. Nate is proposing a 20-foot front yard setback. Normally in the SR4 it's 25, but he's asking for a 20-foot front yard.
Okay, and Nate, how thick are your houses?
How deep?
How deep? I couldn't think.
I don't have the chart in front of me, but I think they range. So you've got a 20-foot front. The typical homes run anywhere from 40, I believe it's 45 to 60 feet deep. The 60 feet, no.
Because right now we're at 46. If we take their 41, so maybe there is a compromise somewhere in the middle.
Yeah, and as we get into the details, I think whether it's restricting certain plans that add another 10 feet to that setback or something.
And that's with only a 20-foot front yard, so, I mean...
Yeah. And one of the things I would point out is the plans that we're proposing that we'll bring to you, the deepest homes are ranches. So they're one-story homes. So, again, you get into what a buyer preference is. A ranch buyer typically wants a little less area to maintain. So it's palatable to the buyer. It's a one-story element instead of, as the gentleman pointed out, when you get relation to relation and it's bedroom window to bedroom window.
The closer you are, you wouldn't be able to see in his daughter's room.
Yeah, actually, the closer, the trajectory changes, yeah. But, yeah.
Sir, I have 3 daughters. You might want to buy curtains.
All right, I think we beat this a bit, and we're going to move it on, I believe, anyway, to the next stage. So conceptually, I think everybody's got a good handle on what's going on.
The next step is this does not move on to any of our citizens' commissions. Based on the input that we've had from the board and the residents. We're going to take all those comments back, sit down and look at it again and see if there aren't some ways to bring it back to the board, including the items that you have raised, and perhaps in a more formal form that goes into the real process.
That would be good. And that being the case, we are done with
Thank you for coming out, Nate.
Planning and zoning part of the evening.
Thank you, Trustee Camera. Final item on the agenda is under Public Works for Trustee Aaron's, the potable water study. Mm-hmm. Have you heard from them? Okay. Police. Trustee Aaron's?
Yes.
Okay.
Oh, potable water study. Valerie, will you take that?
Yes, I will.
We'll hand it right over to Mr. Burke.
That's right. I was going to introduce Dr. Burke to give us a...
Thank you, folks, for coming. We appreciate your opinion.
A shorter version of the study we saw last time, but continue the questions that I know the board has.
Thank you, Valerie. Today I'm going to go briefly through what we talked about last time, going through only the highlights, these highlights from our perspective. This is the reason why we're looking at providing any studies or evaluating your water supply. Right now, you purchase 55% of your daily flow, roughly from Elgin, and you manufacture about 45% of that water yourself. You have an agreement with Elgin that was initiated in 1984. 1984 is a long time ago. It's expiring in 2019. We have to give them notice in 2014 as to what you're planning on doing. And it's also important between 2014 and 2019 because whatever decision you make, you need to do a lot of things in between. Those a lot of things could be more wells, additional connection, building a really, really long transmission line to
I was wondering why that sounded a really long transmission line to different Lake Michigan options. There's some things that you have to do, and it seems like a long time, but there's a lot of permits that have to be obtained, and you need to work through. So that's the timeline. I just want to talk about two things here. One is the 1.25, which is the bump or the multiplier that you currently are paying Elgin for your water, and the average increase over the life of the agreement for what you purchase, which is 4.6%. How long do the wells last? Year currently, as I said, 45%. We went through this last time. 1927 is the year the shallow well number 1 was constructed. The infrastructure is getting old. Things underground don't get better over time. We know that we can see what's going on. We have screen corrosion, the opportunity for different rebuilding of the pumps. So that's one of the things we have to do with when we look at wells. What can go wrong? I talked about this. This is not to alarm you. This is just eyes wide open. These are the things that people hear about. Certainly, this was some of the impetus as to why some of the communities in DuPage and other areas of Cook decided to go forward with something other than wells. So you have those issues associated with the wells that we serve from. Last time we went through the mixture of deep and shallow. I'm not going to go through that again. Long-term sustainable water options, we gave this as an example. The gentleman in the audience spoke about the Streamwood Lake Michigan water supply. I'll call that Jawa for the reason we talked about last time. And, of course, the DuPage Water Commission, DWC. Some of the other communities, West Chicago, an example, is getting their water from wells. Here's what the picture looks like as far as where your neighboring communities are getting the water. I don't think we need to spend any more time on that. It's pretty self-explanatory. We looked at 5 alternatives for getting water to the village. First one is to do exactly what you're doing now. Manufacture some of your water, get the rest of it, 55% of it, from Bartlett, from Elgin. The other option is to say, to get out of the water production business, to eliminate the wells, and to obtain 100% of your water from Elgin. The third is to say, to beef up all of your well production, put new wells in, new treatment, and provide all of the water that you currently use, your residents use, and get that from wells within the corporate limits of Bartlett. You can also go to Jawa, and that is Lake Michigan water. That's a different entity. Certainly we've identified and talked about the professionalism of that staff and the experience they have, and that holds true for the DuPage Water Commission. They get water from, as we talked about last time, from right about Navy Pier. They treat it at Jardine. It gets transmitted, conveyed, treated, pumped again, and sent to those communities which are members of Jawa. And the same thing holds true for DuPage Water Commission. Now, alternative one, I'll go through these briefly just to refresh, and that is right now you tap into an Elgin water main, you put it some pressure energy, and you distribute it into your system. Right now you are also getting waters from the subsurface, from below ground. You're treating it, and depending on the well, you're doing different types of treatment, and it goes pumped in, pressurized into your system. Obviously, we talked about the storage facilities that you have. You put it up in the air to generate additional energy and to dampen out the needs and loads during the year. So that's what alternative one looks like. This is the status quo description. You continue getting it from a mixture of Elgin as well as your wells. You're going to have to put in 2 new deep wells over time to meet your demand. You're going to have to put in treatment plants within the 20-year plan. You're also going to, we've assumed that you would start taking and softening the water similar to what Elgin does with their surface waters that they provide, and you're going to have to, over time, provide 4 million gallons in additional water storage. Alternative 2 was to provide obtain all the water from Elgin. That requires that you, over time, within the 10 to 20 year level, to try to get an additional connection, and that's what we've shown here. This is, you're getting that here, and you're going to have to put 1 new connection in the future in order to get all of your water from Elgin, because obviously you're increasing. Right now you're only getting 55%, in this case, this scenario, 100%, and in the future, as your demand goes up, you're going to have to consider construction in the 10 to 20 year period of additional water. And that's what I summarized here. The things that we talked about: no wells being used in the future, effective immediately, you would start increasing your water use, and that your multiplier would go from 1.25 to 1.15, not having to wait to 2019, as we proposed to the staff at Elgin. The annual rate of increase reduced from 4.6 to 2.5%. That gives you more predictability and a better handle on what the increases will be from year to year. You have the ability to phase this over in 10 years. That has a very low near-term capital improvement cost. Construction of the Elgin connection, I talked about that. And you would, and a lot of these, you would still, as a best practice, start looking at an alternative backup connection to serve your neighbors. This would help them as well as helping the village. Alternative 3 was to change to 100% well water supply. This requires that you put in additional wells, and in all case, what you do is you're taking the water out, treating it, pumping it, and you have, as we saw last time, a well scattered throughout the communities. You would have to balance these and probably put some in on the west side to accommodate that growth in that area. No longer would you be purchasing water for Elgin, so at the end of your current agreement, you would terminate. That means you have to be ready, up and running with the wells, drill those wells, get them treated, get the permits to do that, and get those operational. You would also, and we've assumed that you would add softening, because the residents, at least a part of the village that is directly getting the water from Elgin, are used to a softened type water that Elgin is providing. Alternative 3 would require you to update a lot of things in a very short period of time. Alternative 4 is pretty straightforward, and this looks exactly like the DuPage Water Commission option. You want to tie into an existing connection from one of your neighbors. We would tie in, you would put a long line in, we would have to have a delivery structure, and this is, it's not a building, it's a subsurface building, be a small above ground structure that has the meters, the air gap, and the other things required from the individual provider of water, and we would then take it and put it in a storage tank, and we would pump it into the system. So you no longer have wells, you don't have the Elgin connection, you're using water coming from a main, and as we spoke, you can't just tap into the a 12-inch line next door. You suck it dry pretty fast with the demand that the village has. The same, this is the list of options, the benefits or requirements. We'd have to go to IDNR. Right now, that does not sound like it's a difficult thing to do. You'd have to connect and join. There's some costs that are required to join. The Streamwood and the other communities put the money up front. There's a buy-in that we've interpreted based on some proposals that we've seen, and we footnoted in our report. Discontinue watering, purchase water from Elgin, and get rid of your wells. That would all be part of this alternative. The same thing would hold true if you went to DuPage Water Commission. There's just a different picture, but the delivery is the same. You're getting water from one of the DuPage Water Commission communities. You're making sure you can tap into a big main, and then you get it into the village. So those are very similar, and these are almost identical to the alternative 5. We also have to have some additional transmission lines. In the case of alternative 2, you've got about 9,000 linear feet of line to connect up alternative 2 to the second connection. That's something that would be done in years 10 to 20. Obviously, in year 0, by the time if you are going with alternative 4 or alternative 5, this has to be done by the time you terminate your contract with Elgin. These lines have to be in. You have no phasing ability. You're putting 23,200 some odd feet for alternative 4, and if you're going to look at alternative 5, the Water Commission, you've got a similar amount. You have to extend it all the way to North Avenue. And so what we did is take a look at what those were. What we did is we did a visual rating comparison, if you recall, and what we did is we looked at the different options, identifying each of the options according to least or less favored, neutral, favorable, or most favorable. And so you can see the different types of grading that we assign to these different alternatives. And you can see from a color perspective, you're seeing more bluish colors on the alternative 2, and something that overall has more favorable options, more favorable characteristics. So what we did is we talked about alternative 2. It gives you the long-term, the most cost-effective and sustainable solution. You get a lower rate immediately. You get more manageable annual rate increases. It eliminates your dependence, and we talked about this last time on the wells, the uncertainty as to whether or not you can get a handle on what your requirements on water quality will be in the future. And the source capacity is already there. Elgin, as we understand it, have made the capital improvements to increase the capacity that they can take in and treat, which is really important in this particular case. The other benefit is you don't have a regulatory agency to deal with. You can phase in the improvements over 10 years. Elgin is already softened. People know what the quality of the water is. They have backup supply, and the IDNR, the agency looking at water supply, says that there's adequate capacity. It also has the lowest near-term and future capital improvement cost based on the parameters that we looked at. This is important. This looks at what you would have to expend in the near-term and future. Near-term in blue, and brown is the long-term. We also looked at the projected annual water fund budget by alternative, and we show for each one of these alternates. We are in the process of getting our arms around what the future rates would be for each of these alternatives as well. So we'll come back with a similar type graph looking at what the rates are. To remind you of this, this shows you what as you increase your water rates, your water usage over time, and presumably you would with the purchase of 100% of Elgin, the multiplier gets smaller. So right now it would be capped at 1.15 compared to the 1.25 that you're currently paying on the water purchases that you have with the mixture. So this would all be capped at 1.15, and as your water use increased, the reason why we presented this is that if the village of Bartlett is purchasing more water, then they should be getting a bigger discount. They become more of a player, and so we presented this option to the village, and you can see, or to City of Elgin, and that when we go up to 5.5, you're at the same rate that the residential customers of the City of Elgin are paying. Finally, we look at the option of how this provides more predictability for budgeting, and we compared the fluctuations and the historical average of 4.6 to something that's much more manageable. If they go over that, that's their problem. They can only raise it 2.5% per year. In the past, you can see that there have been some significant fluctuations, and of course their water year, their billing period does not match up with how you change your rates, and that, as we understand, has caused some difficulty in the future. So in summary, alternative 2, 100% Elgin supply, in our opinion, based on everything we know now, offers the most favorable long-term sustainable water supply with the least amount of uncertainties, the most flexibility for implementation at the lowest capital cost. So so I know that there were a lot of questions, and I expect there to be a lot of questions. This is an important issue that you're faced with, and we are working on establishing some type of estimate as to what you could expect for water rates. Obviously, we have to get our arms around and make some assumptions. As an example, as I was telling the mayor before the meeting, the City of Chicago has increased the water that they sell the communities 25%, and they're going to do that 25% per year for a total of 4 years by the time they're done. Do we assume that that's going to continue? I think that if we did, you can see those water rates get very, very high in the future years when you start looking at the purchasing. And so we're trying to figure out what we can expect. What we would do with the the status quo. We'd have to look at that, take a look at 4.6 or whatever rate of increase you would expect Elgin to be giving you in the future. So it's not a simple calculation now, and we're supposed to we're finishing it up, and we're trying to imagine. We can't really project out to 15 years from now what the water is going to cost. We're trying to look at the short-term incremental costs that you would be looking to pass on to the residents. So that's what we're doing in response to your last series of questions. At this point, turn it over to you to ask additional questions.
Sure. Did we find out about if we could go to 50 years yet?
No, we did not.
I'm sorry, I can't.
50 years, 50-year extension. We will, when we meet with Elgin, we want to try to give them some indication, right. But we will certainly bring that up to their, because 50 years seems like a long time, but 35 went pretty fast.
We're talking about.
Lock it in.
Is there a difference between the processing that Elgin uses and the processing that Chicago uses?
Both, I try to figure out, because you guys have Dasani water, try to figure out what process they use. They're all very similar. They're state-of-the-art. City of Chicago uses sand filters, and they chlorinate the water. We believe that and Elgin has represented that they have the equal state-of-the-art type water treatment and water quality treatment facilities.
So we're comparing chlorinated water to purified water.
To purified water. You never know where those are coming from. They bottle it in some...
I think we need samples next time. We need well number 5.
So,
Elgin.
But yeah, it's very similar.
Well, I know that we're waiting on some of the questions that we posed the last time. Does anybody have any new thoughts or things that we can share with Mr. Burke that he can help us out with? One of the things that kind of piqued my interest since the last meeting was twofold. One, staff question. Mm-hmm. How many people do we employ right now full-time to maintain the wells that we have?
In the water division, there are, when I look out there, Dan, you're supposed to, that's how it works. Yeah.
Paul, I think that was directed at you.
8.
8, okay. And it's safe to say that obviously we're still going to have to have some water professionals.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Well, that question and then it kind of leads me to the question about, at some point, Mr. Burke, are we creating a situation with 100% reliability on Elgin that we're somehow more vulnerable to their expertise in manufacturing water and their consistency?
I suppose you are now, and you would be certainly in the future, exposed to their expertise. Just like any of the provide, anybody that we're looking to purchase the water, we're relying on how that they are professionals and have to meet the same water quality requirements that we have to. And we're meeting those whether we're taking water or dumping water into out of our wastewater treatment plant, as an example. So we're always relying on some type of professional to meet water quality standards.
I guess the difference post 100% is that now at least we have some handle on controlling 55% of our supply.
45.
45.
45.
Yeah, 45.
Yeah.
Smaller.
And remember, we do. You're absolutely right. It's your staff, and you know that your staff is going to do things according to what the Public Works Director is, mandate. You do have the one thing that you do have. You have a scattering of sites, so you can't control the water quality that's coming out of the ground at each one of those sites. That's the only thing you can't control.
How much water do we use for waste treatment?
I mean, as far as how much water?
How much water do we use to process? Do we know?
Very little additional water is used for our treatment.
Okay, so it wouldn't be feasible to keep a pump open just for that. Okay,
No.
That's where I was getting at.
Well, let me ask this: our new agreement with Elgin. If we entered into a new agreement with Elgin, are we going to have water quality standards as part of that agreement?
Absolutely.
Okay, so if they weren't giving us good water, we would have arguably a claim against the city of Elgin.
Absolutely.
Okay.
And if they're not giving us good water and we shut off our well,
right, where the interconnect comes into play.
And what our agreement would say is they meet all the IEPA standards,
Okay.
which they have to do for themselves anyhow. Every day of the week, they send in the same samples that we do.
Okay, and that's one of the reasons why I asked about the interconnect so much last time, is because, what is our plan B? And then I think the $64,000 question actually costs an awful lot more, regardless of which option we go with. And I know this kind of starts heading towards your rate issue. But how are we going to finance this? I think I know the answer. We're probably going to talk about building it into the rates, and we'll probably talk about bonds at some point. But I would think that the alternative would dictate the financing. Is that correct?
I think that's absolutely correct, and that's one of the reasons why we have a chart that shows long-term and short-term costs, because some of the options, as we have outlined, if the board goes through with that option, we have a lot of work to do right now to get ready for 2019. I won't tell you that at some point we may be able to get a couple years extension from Elgin if we need it to accomplish that, but we have to find well locations, buy land, get the permits, drill wells. We have a lot of work to do. Some of the other options, they're pretty easy to accomplish. There's very, very little capital short term, but when we're talking about a 35-year agreement, the capital comes later in that agreement. So that's absolutely right. The financing will really depend upon what option you take. Some of those early options we are going to have to bond for, and if you recall, this is an enterprise fund, so what happens with this will not go on the tax bills, it's going to go on the water rates.
Question, so we have the one supply line from Elgin right now. We would build a second one. Does the one, if that was running at 100%, what could that bring us up to percentage-wise of our water that we are using?
Right now, we believe that the existing connection, I'm looking at Mark to nod his head here, can handle the 100% flow that we need in the short term.
The existing connection to Elgin, we can bump it up from where it is now, but we can't get to 100% through that one connection. We will need two connections to get 100%.
So we have to build the two connections in the short term, the second connection in the short term.
No, it's in
That's
the
what I'm
long
asking. I mean, so if we went in 2019, again, 2019, we would not have, we could take 100% through the existing connection. Yes or no?
No.
Okay.
We would be upping what we would be taking from Elgin, but you would still second connection up and running.
Well, we're not at the rate that we're going to be at 2019, according to this, right now. So could we go 100% now?
Not without the second connection.
Not without the second well. Okay, so what's that put us at?
And that's based on what we believe we know, because no one's modeled that, and we're not sure that would be. We have not pursued the detailed modeling that's necessary to determine at what point you start pushing yourself over to constructing the second connection.
So if we did this, and you said a couple times we could do it right away, we'd keep a certain number of wells open, shut down a few, and then start making plans for the second line. Is that correct?
Yes.
And then we'd have to have that built before 219, or 219.
Probably.
2019.
Depending on what we find in the modeling and the more detailed engineering.
No. Are you talking about the Elgin option?
Elgin option.
We can start taking most of our water by
That's what I was trying to get
2019. The additional amount that we have not, and the modeling will show whatever that additional amount. My guess is that Dr. Burke doesn't think it's too much that's out there, but whatever that is, that's in the long range that we have to put the second connection in.
You just said you couldn't do 100% right now.
Right.
So that
That's
means
right.
we still have to keep
Yeah,
a couple
I just said
wells
that.
open.
Second piece, whatever it is in the second connection. And the modeling will show that.
Go ahead, Bob.
With the Elgin option, it's a phasing in.
Yeah.
We anticipate within 10 years to be fully, 100% fully supplying to Elgin. So immediate starting up with Elgin right now, we do believe the existing connection that we have, we can take an additional 1 million gallons a day through that same connection. That 1 million gallons a day would eliminate you to build the one well that we already have in the capital budget for the short term. So right now, for the short term, we can take an additional 1 million gallons a day through the existing connection. For the long term, and percentages, I can't answer the percentage on that because I don't know what the demand is going to be. Right now, we can still take 1 million gallons more than what we currently are right now. But as the growth goes into town, as the growth goes, and as we get closer into that, we have the time to build that second connection within a 10-year window, because we keep on saying that within 10 years we will be on Elgin water 100%. That would allow us to phase down on our existing wells as some of our contracts that we have our long-term commitments with our treatments on some of our deep wells. As they phase down, we can eliminate those wells.
So we would we wouldn't build a new one, and we'd still carry almost all our other wells until the second pipeline's built.
What we could do is if we don't
Phase out as we need. Yes.
Up to,
I got it.
and 1 million is an estimate based on what we believe the capacity of the line is.
So we're not going to phase out anything right away. That's what it sounds like. So.
Or we could start taking, we believe 1 million gallons, and right now our average daily flow is?
About 3.7 million gallons a day, and we're currently taking 2 from Elgin, and we believe we can step that up to 3.
Without having to build an additional.
We aren't going to need all of our wells right away. We can start getting off of them right away as we move.
We can get out the ones that have poor water quality and more likely to need repairs or improvements.
Do we know how long we've been at this rate of you said 3.7 million gallons we're having a day? For how many years have we been at that rate? Has it continually gone up every year, or are we plateaued, or?
We've actually gone down a little bit.
Yeah, we varied over the last decade. Some of the peak years were around 2005. We've seen in recent years, not only in Bartlett, but in most communities, water usages have gone down. There's various theories for why that is. Some of them is cost, and some of them is more efficient fixtures and water systems. And some of it's weather patterns. There's less development activity that's been going on in recent years, but it's gone down, and now it's kind of creeping back again. It's kind of various cycles depending, year to year to year.
And we're anticipating, as our industrial growth continues, and based on the kinds of businesses we're getting in our industrial park, we will use more water, and perhaps a significant amount more.
But we don't know that.
Well, based on the businesses that we've gotten out there right now, we do know that to some certain extent. We have Rana, and we have the cheese merchant, which is going to use a lot of water.
Next question. Are we going to build the same size as we have connecting Elgin, or are we going to build the larger one? Not use its full capacity on our second pump? Because if we do that, it looks like we could only get up to 6, which still puts us under the maximum.
Well, the
6 million.
When we discussed with Elgin what we would need, you have the 3.7 is an average day, and then you have a maximum day. And your historical maximum day has been over 10.
Well, back to 2005.
They would need to provide that, whereas now you're making up the difference. Right now they're providing a constant 2. You make up the difference to get the maximum day with your well facilities.
So we're going to phase out our wells.
Yeah,
what
so
I'm
question,
saying is,
right.
in the future, if you look at 2055, and it's estimated we're over 4.5 million. So, and then if we get more industry here, and they like our Bartlett water because that's why Rana came, then if we have the same size, then we're pumping 3 here and 3 over here. Is there any way we can do 5 or whatever? I don't know what it pumps. Is that an option?
The limiting factors.
So we don't have to build another well in 25 years.
We certainly will look at that. We understand that. We can address that question and come back to you.
I got a question regarding slide 57, colored squares. I'm a visual guy.
Color squares, all right.
Slide 57, the 5 alternatives rating comparison.
What's the one?
Under the alternative number 2, you list the long-term sustainability of the source as favorable, which is good, as compared to most favorable for Lake Michigan. Might I draw the inference that that's just because the size of the bodies of water is the difference?
Yes.
Okay. So we're not really saying that the water coming from the Fox River or vis-a-vis through Elgin, we're going to run dry. It's just from a engineering and scientific standpoint, because Lake Michigan is a bajillion gallons of water, and the Fox River is only a half a bajillion. That's that comparison. Is that?
Yes.
Is that a third grade version of what you're saying?
Yes.
Okay.
As long as people upriver don't start using more water.
Or using it for industrial purposes, my concern.
Dr. Burke, how soon would we have to have our emergency hookup?
The emergency interconnect?
Right.
I would suggest, as Paul mentioned last time, some of the surrounding communities have approached you about the possibility of doing that now. I would assume, as I stated, that would be a best practice for something to be pursued within this time frame that you're looking at implementing these agreements.
Short term, not long term.
Yes.
What's the cost of that?
We estimated last time, I think, just for $500,000 to $1 million for emergency, it would probably on the order of $500,000. You guys disagree?
And what, from Streamwood, right? You mentioned that the last time.
That's what we talked about.
Yeah.
Had 2 options, I thought, Streamwood and...
How much does it cost to maintain a well per year? Do we know that? Just say we wanted to use one of our wells as a backup, as opposed to paying, what did you say, $1.5 million to hook up with Streamwood? What's it cost per year to maintain one well?
It's really hard to determine, on an annual basis. We can work on some numbers and look at that. But just to say how much does it take to maintain that is very difficult, depending on what time of the year or what time it falls in the cycle. If you're rebuild 7 to 12 years, pulling that. I don't have that right here.
Yeah.
Maybe we'll just ask some of the surrounding DuPage Water Commission communities that kept theirs open for a year or so to get an idea.
Well, obviously, if Elgin maintains a well as their backup, they must have some idea what it would cost to maintain that well. And I'm just looking at it thinking, well, if it costs, say, $25,000 a year to maintain a well, it's going to take a long time to get to $1.5 million by hooking onto another source if you can maintain one well for the next 20 years.
We'll come back with an estimate of the well maintenance as well as the...
I thought there was some...
It would depend on the age of the well, what kind of water is coming out of, what kind of treatment we have to put it on, but we could take an average or something like that.
Just as a backup.
Yeah.
We'll get a more definitive number on what the emergency interconnects are running.
Good question.
Do our biggest well.
All right.
Any questions, T.L.?
No.
And one last thought, because this came up in passing when I was discussing water at some event, but somebody had mentioned that West Chicago was looking for suitors to buy their water. And I don't know if we've entertained that or if you've looked into that, but maybe as a backup or something. I don't. It might be something that we may want to check on. I know the whole name hasn't came up, and it could have been somebody that didn't know what they were talking about. But
do they get theirs from Fox too?
There's well.
No, they get all well
wells.
water. So certainly we can take a look at that.
Not to sidetrack us, but all right. TL?
Yeah?
Anything else?
I'm still here.
Dr. Burke, we thank you so much for repeating and giving us the overview again. I believe we will be revisiting and seeing much more of Dr. Burke as we
will. What I would propose to do is the next meeting is July 15th, probably take a break from water to let the watershed of agenda activities flow through. I practiced that one.
Oh, my goodness.
Is that our haiku for
yes.
4th of July?
And then, of course, we miss a meeting with National Night Out. That puts us back to the 19th. And I think what I'd like to do is have the 19th, really advertise it. I'll have it in the Bartlett. We'll do our email blasts and really make sure that everybody knows on the 19th we will have a longer presentation, hopefully get some of the public here and go back through the longer presentation from Dr. Burke and then see where we go from there.
Sounds great. And we're expecting some answers, I guess, to at that meeting. So if there's nothing else, I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
No move.
Second.
Moved by Trustee Pittman, seconded by Trustee Martin. Clerk, please call the roll.
Trustee Ahrens?
Yes.
Kammerer?
Yes?
Carbonaro?
Yes.
Martin?
Yes.
Ranky?
Yes.
Shipman?
Yes.